Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to share a surprising way that fasting can help you lose weight, or in other words, reduce body fat and improve your physique. So it'll probably just take a couple minutes to walk you through this. So stay with me as I kind of connect the dots. And I was inspired by a book I was reading recently, which I'll mention in a moment. But fasting, short-term fasting or long-term fasting, either one could apply to this, but we'll just talk about the short-term daily fasting, also known as time-restricted eating. So if you're fasting on a daily basis, or if you're fasting sometimes part of the day, then your blood sugar will not be spiking as often, and your blood sugar will not be high as often because you're not eating as often, right? Makes pretty good sense. So if your blood sugar is not high as often and not spiking as often, then that has a lot of benefits. But one of them is you'll probably have less inflammation in your brain. And the reason I mentioned that is I was reading a book recently called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. I think that's the title, by Dr. Georgia Eady. So she's a psychiatrist, and she was writing about dietary changes to help with psychiatric conditions, or in other words, mental health issues, brain conditions, things like that. And so she talked about brain inflammation. So if you have high blood sugar, that's one of the things that causes inflammation in your brain. And apparently the brain is not as good as some other parts of the body at kind of getting rid of inflammation. So if you're causing a lot of inflammation in your brain, that ain't good. And there's a pretty strong connection between inflammation in the brain and depression. So some people with depression, it gets better just by taking an anti-inflammatory medicine. Not everybody, but apparently there's a pretty significant impact in that way. So if high blood sugar equals brain inflammation equals higher chance of depression, then of course eating more often is going to mean you're more likely, therefore, to be depressed and to engage in emotional eating, such as binge eating, which is the most common eating disorder, binge eating disorder. And that could include things like eating when you're feeling sad, or just kind of binging late at night, like as a lot of people do, and I've done sometimes. And so for at least a subset of people, this connection could be really significant. So if you are fasting part of the day, your blood sugar is not high as often, you probably won't have as much inflammation in your brain, less likely to be depressed, and less likely to engage in emotional eating, and therefore probably won't be binging as often, and therefore will probably have a much easier time losing weight, reducing body fat, improving your physique. So it's not a perfect connection that will apply all the time to everyone, but it is something significant to consider in terms of how what you eat can affect the amount of inflammation in your brain, and a lot of other downstream effects from that, such as mental illness and so on and so forth, as well as eating disorders. All right, so just a few tidbits I wanted to share. So I'll be back soon here on YouTube or on the podcast, wherever you're checking this out, and I'll have some more stuff to share. Thanks for watching or listening, and I'll see you next time on Fasting Well.